So with a lot of Jump manga basically coming to an end right now, with the likes of JJK basically confirming it's recently going towards its conclusion, My Hero Academia and Black Clover currently being in their final arcs 100% confirmed, there are a lot of Jump manga whose anime have yet to come out that honestly could actually take the reins. Jujutsu Kaisen could honestly have another like 2 to 3 seasons once season 2 eventually ends in this summer. But there's still some other things we could consider to basically take the reins. Right now we have one such series airing during the spring of 2023, and at least one more series coming out before the end of the year that I'm sure will make some waves. Joining me today is my friend Shonen OG.
Hello, hello.
OG is also another anime manga YouTuber who's honestly very close to getting to 10k subs. So if you enjoy his presence here, go and check out his channel. He makes a lot of really cool stuff. Right now, he's been more focused on Chainsaw Man at the moment, which, honestly, really great stuff, I gotta admit.
Thank you.
But, yeah, so right here, we're going to discuss a couple of manga whose anime have been announced or should be getting an announcement soon, that when they do end up getting their animes airing, they will most likely be the next big manga to talk about. Spoiler alert, a lot of these we're going to be talking about right now are coming from Shonen Jump, if you can believe it or not, primarily since, well, Jump has had a lot of the bigger names lately. But we're not going to discount series that aren't from Jump as well. So let's just get right into it with our first series, which is actually airing right now, which is Mashle, Muscles, and Magic. And honestly, I was both hyped and not as hyped when I first got into Mashle. I wasn't really looking for a comedy-based anime, but when I got into the manga, I honestly liked its brand of humor, and it had really good artwork and action scenes. But I'm not as hyped about it right now. But the anime is doing a really great job adapting the manga, especially with the action scenes being a bit more fluid. And the jokes still kind of land for me as well. How do you think of Mashle's anime so far, OG?
So I will admit I've only seen the first episode. I am behind on that. The visuals are really good. It looks awesome. And the comedy still hits. There is that contrast between the anime and the manga, because in the manga you have like the deadpans. And then in the anime, it's kind of hard to emulate that because you don't have like just panels. So they're kind of going more for the action and less of the Mashle style comedy, which is fine. But I did a whole video on this and I was basically like, that's all fine, but you're kind of speeding up what happened to the manga, which is it kind of just turned into another battle series, which is totally cool. It's just it kind of leaves behind what was so charming about Mashle originally.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, some of the deadpans in the more recent episodes have been, like, better. And the comedy does, in fact, still land for the most part. I just watched the most recent episode at the time of recording where he runs into the guy from Langdorm with the puppets. And a lot of the comedy still lands, but I do agree, as it lands more in towards... more leaning towards the action set pieces, it does feel like it loses some of its more comedic deadpan charm. But I think a lot of like anime only fans or a large variety of like shonen fans mainly focus more on like the action and how it pertains to some of the characters as well. And I think Mashle's characters are relatively well written, so I still think it could do well. But despite how it is right now, we haven't gotten to like the really big moments that would actually get it to, you know, blow up in the anime scene, but I think it's getting some good traction regardless, even now in its beginnings.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you this, because I'm curious, because I don't really know, like, how big of a fan you are. What do you think about the Undead Unluck anime when that comes out? Do you think that has, like, next big hit potential? Because, I mean, it's a fairly popular manga among Jump fans, and it is going to be done by Dave Pro.
Like, I am very, very hyped for Undead Unluck's anime. Like, when it was announced it was going to be getting an anime adaptation, I was honestly very excited. And when David Productions was announced to be doing it, I'm like, the studio behind JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Fire Force of recent times doing this series, I feel like it's a good match. And with how Undead Unluck has been throughout the entirety of the series, I really do think it's going to more or less be a big hit considering how unique the power system is and how the story progresses with technically how the plot progresses and the characters interact with each other. I do think there is one big hurdle that it will have to go through with its like opening 2 to 3 episodes, and that's how the series deals with Fuko and Andy's relationship at the very start, considering it kind of starts with him more or less groping her to use her unlocked powers to basically get her. But the one thing I could say is that since the anime is going to be probably going to be like 2 to 3 chapters per episode, since Undead Unluck is still fairly fast paced, I do think by the time we reach like episodes 4 or 5, that'll be around the time when those types of moments and scenes are basically like cut out and aren't like lingered on at all, in order for the actual series to actually shine. So I do feel like past those opening episodes with those specific moments, if it looks good enough and people end up liking Andy, or more specifically Fuko, then I do think that they're going to end up like latching onto this series. It does have big hit potential, but those opening episodes are probably going to like deter some people for some of those scenes.
Yeah, I mean, that's natural. There's always that kind of reaction to that sort of material, and rightfully so in this case. But considering all the anime that are still popular with like even more stuff like that, I don't think it'll be like a damning hurdle for Undead Unluck.
Oh no, I don't think it's going to be like a damning hurdle. I just think like it probably won't get as many fans off the jump as it probably deserves to get, and it probably takes some people a little longer.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, out of the like newer lineup of Jump Anime or Jump Anime 2B, I think Undead Unluck has the biggest potential to be like the next big hit, besides of course Chainsaw Man and JJK, which we can talk about.
Well, yeah, like Chainsaw Man right now, we just finished the first season of the anime, and that was a big hit. Season 2, we have no real confirmation on when that's coming out. It could it'll come out fall of this year, and it'll be come out exactly 1 year after season 1, or it'll come out sometime in 2024. And the manga is actually still going with part 2 right now, and I think it has enough material right now with, if things cap off this arc, it could be enough for another season of Chainsaw Man. It all depends on how long MAPPA decide to take a break between seasons, between each of these seasons, and how many chapters are around. But JJK, I do think that season 2, I think it's going to make JJK bigger than it did when it first aired, because those are the 2 biggest arcs that got a lot of people like really excited about JJK and like full on the hype train. I know it did for me. So I feel like season 2 is going to go hard, and we've got like at least another 2 seasons left with JJK, depending on how much longer we have for the chapters of JJK's manga, since it more or less is seemingly going to end this year. So we got another like 6 months of JJK for the manga at least.
Yeah, when I look at Chainsaw Man and JJK, it's kind of hard to think of one standing out over the other, but looking at them now and like looking at the source material and how it's sort of been received, I generally think Chainsaw Man is going to have more of a cultural impact and be more iconic, I guess, or be the bigger hit, just because it's a meme machine like JoJo's. And JoJo's, even though it like doesn't necessarily stand out as a classic for everyone, it is a classic, and it's just so iconic because of all the bizarre stuff, and that's exactly what Chainsaw Man does. Whereas with JJK, it is funny and it has a lot of unique character to it, but it just doesn't have that personality like a JoJo's or like a Chainsaw Man. It does and it doesn't.
I think with JJK, it's more like the hype levels with the series and the build up to different plot beats and fights and how the abilities work. Because like that's like more very heavy battle shonen-esque in comparison to Chainsaw Man, which is like unhinged yet controlled chaos with how much as well as like character drama as well. So I think JJK is more of like the hype. Meanwhile, Chainsaw Man I agree, will have like more staying power with how the memes are and how it looks.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Not that Chainsaw Man doesn't have hype. It obviously has hype, but I mean, people have literally accused JJK of being like too hype, which is hilarious to say, but that is what people have said and still continue to say for some reason.
Yeah, I don't really understand that aspect at all. But speaking of hype, the next series I honestly think will actually do really well once its anime does come out is Sakamoto Days. This is a series that I actually just binged read like 2 weeks before Rogers Base's Manga of the Year stream, and I honestly hate that I haven't made a video on it just yet, because it is not just very hype, but all of the action scenes in this series is really well choreographed. For a manga to do really well drawn and easy to follow action sequences with primarily just hand-to-hand combat for the most part is just insane, at least from what I've read so far. And there are a lot of good manga, martial arts manga in particular, that do this type of thing very well, but I think Sakamoto Days just adds another level to it, with also its relatively like simplistic art style that gets detailed if need be. And I just like the characters of Sakamoto Days too, with how Sakamoto just literally, you see no emotion from the guy for the most part, yet he is part of one of the biggest parts of the comedy of that series also, which is honestly something that I think it does better than like Mashle, with a good blend of comedy and action.
Yeah, I think it'll do really good at first. I don't think it'll be as popular as, say, Spy Family, just because what Spy Family has going for it is like there is action, but it's mostly like, it's almost like a sitcom, I guess. So it's a lot easier for casual fans to get into. Whereas with Sakamoto Days, there is comedy, but it's almost like Mashle, where it starts out very comedic and then retains comedy, but focuses more on action as the story goes on and focuses more on like the plot development, which is fine, but then you kind of lose people, or at least you lose the more casual fans who kind of just like want to watch the funny stuff. So I think it'll do really well if it gets the right studio. I'm a bit skeptic as far as its big hit potential.
Yeah, makes sense. Though I do think like with how like Demon Slayer gets like trending a lot whenever it has like really cool action set pieces, and how popular it's become thanks to its anime adaptation. I think like with how well choreographed Sakamoto Days is, I do feel like it'll like, I don't think it'll get like up there the Demon Slayer levels of hype unless like Ufotable end up taking the anime adaptation for Sakamoto Days and just get insane with it. But I do think it'll definitely get popular if it gets a good adaptation.
No, yeah, for sure. I think it'll be popular. I'm just kind of questioning, like, will it be, like, the next big hit? And I kind of don't think so. I think it'll do well. It just, I don't think it'll, like, blow up necessarily.
Yeah, that's fair. We really can't tell at the end of the day, but that is a very likely possibility at the end. Mm. But since Sakamoto Days is more or less like a spy and hitman type series, a good spy series I think would probably, if I don't know because I think the studio was announced for this series, but Mission Yozakura Family is another one of my favorites manga that I've been reading right now, and I think if it gets a good adaptation, it'll get people to talk about it. If people like Spy Family, I think they'll like Yozakura because it does a nice blend of like slice of life episodic adventures at the start, and then it builds up to like actual storyline and nice comedic character moments in between. And I think, have you heard of Studio Silverlink?
What have they done?
I honestly don't know. I just looked it up right now, right before we got on here, and I honestly don't. I don't remember hearing about the studio at all. I could probably look it up at some point, but I'm just curious to see if it'll like, if Yozakura Family's anime could actually like keep like the nice artistic tone of the manga in terms of like its more emotional and impactful moments, because with how it's usually drawn is just, let's be honest, just beautiful and can touch your heart. So at the very least, if the anime can get those moments and the character interactions animated very well, along with the action scenes, I think it'll probably do like fairly well. Though I feel it'll probably be around the same thing as what you said with Sakamoto Days, where it'll get its fans, especially if it's like very well animated, but it probably won't have like big staying power. Even though I really do enjoy Yozakura family.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree. I mean, I think it'll get plenty of new fans of the manga, and I think if it's handled well, obviously manga fans will really enjoy it, but I feel like it'll be more of, not a cult classic, but one of the more like on a niche. There we go. That is the perfect way. That was exactly what I was trying to say. Kind of like a as much as I hate to say it, Dr. Stone. Although Dr. Stone is funny because it's like viewed as niche, and yet it's usually like on the front page of Crunchyroll when it's airing.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, Dr. Stone is just an enigma at this point. With whether it's niche or just very popular, it's like it toes that gray line.
Exactly.
Which we could technically count Dr. Stone, even though the manga's done. We still probably have enough for another like 2 seasons, like one other like big season after the current one.
I would say
maybe
if they adapt the whole thing, then it'll probably be 5 seasons in total.
So like another 2 seasons at least, another 2 seasons most likely for Dr. Stone, which is honestly really good. I really look forward to seeing all those moments animated because we're literally getting into some of like I think Dr. Stone at its best.
Oh yeah, 100%. So
there's not too much with Dr. Stone. What else do you think we should talk about first?
So as a way to sort of wrap up the conversation, I want to get your thoughts on something that we both like and something that has kind of been taking a while to reveal. What do you think is going to happen with 100 Years Quest? Because there are Mashima fans who actually like it better than Eden Zero, and Eden Zero has been kind of struggling to find its place. So I'm curious what the reception will be of the 100. And excuse me, when I say struggling to find its place, I mean the anime. The anime hasn't really blown up or anything like that. What do you think is going to happen when it finally comes out with 100 Years Quest? Because I don't think it's going to be nearly as popular as Fairy Tail has sort of become up to now. I think it's mostly going to be like nostalgia. I don't think it's going to be as popular, but what do you think?
I mean, I do agree it'll probably be like nostalgia, because like any Fairy Tail fan would probably jump at the sight of getting like a brand new, like an actual like canonical sequel spin-off to it. But since it is a canonical like sequel, that is also like a problem, because that would also mean newer anime fans can't just jump right onto it, considering that they'd have to go back and watch all like 300 plus episodes of Fairy Tail in order to know like the context for the 100 Years Quest, who the characters are, the abilities, all that stuff. So I think in terms of like newer fans, it probably won't really like get too many newer fans. Though if it's like very well animated, which as much as I love Fairy Tail, the anime didn't have too many like standout super big moments that were animated super well. It was a decent adaptation. It did have its moments, but nothing that like would break the internet, even when we got like the final season in like 2019, 2018. So I feel like it would definitely like crack the mainstream a little bit if we get like some of those iconic fight scenes or moments in the spin-off animated very well. But I feel like it'll probably be similar to Dr. Stone, where it'll be like in like that gray area. Well, it'll just be niche for like Mashima Fairy Tail fans, but it could get popular with the mainstream anime fans if they do like decide to go check out Fairy Tail and if they like it. But then again, there's also for like years now just been a bunch of people that just like crap on Fairy Tail and anything related to Mashima, and it kind of puts more newer fans off of his works. So even if it comes out, I feel like it's not gonna like hit the waves that it should.
Yeah, I think it just needs the right studio and it'll do well. I think the only reason I don't think it will be like a big hit, like the next big thing, is because, one, you pointed out, it's kind of hard to get into for new fans and not just like spoil yourself. Like, it's written so that you can get into it if you didn't read the original series. You just there's a lot of stuff that'll go over your head. And then the other thing is, it improves on a lot of things from the original series, but at the end of the day, it's still the same characters, and it's still a lot of the same tropes. So if you don't like those about Fairy Tail, then you really have no incentive to watch the new one.
Yeah, that's kind of the main issue when it comes to Fairy Tail's anime. It'll do relatively well with Fairy Tail fans and Mashle fans in general, but the wider anime community probably isn't going to give it that much of a chance, especially if it's like a sequel. With what you brought up with Eden Zero, the main thing that hurt it was the whole like crap that Fairy Tail and Mashle get from the wider, like, or at least the very vocal minority of anime fans and some larger YouTubers. And so they kind of don't give Eden Zero a shot. And it's also because the first season of Eden Zero was just in Netflix jail for over a year until they released it in 2 batches, and no one really like paid any mind to it, save for people who are already reading the manga. But season 2 is on Crunchyroll, and they're actually posting clips and stuff on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So when like some of the iconic moments in this second season is where a lot of people really got super invested in Eden Zero, and it's the first major arc, I feel like with how if it's adapted very well, people will get interested and they'll give Eden Zero a fair shake at some point. But it might be too late, or it could be too soon to tell. It's kind of up in the air at this point. We'd have to wait till season 2 ends at the very least for that.
Yeah, for sure.
But moving on to the next series, I think could actually do relatively well. I think Elusive Samurai is honestly a relatively like it's like an underdog series in Jump right now. It's still running with over 100, I think over 100 chapters at this point, and it does good sales, but not too many people are like talking about it in the wider like manga community. But I think once it gets an anime, and if it gets a good studio, it will like get people talking about it, because it's from the author of one of the most beloved anime ever, Assassination Classroom. Even today, after the anime finished, people still talk about it, people still make videos on it, and it's like also a big recommendation for a starter anime. So if a lot of people like Assassination Classroom, so I do feel like once word gets out that this is from that exact same creator, people will give it a shot. And Elusive Samurai has also got a relatively good story, and is a bit more action and strategy focused in comparison to how Assassination Classroom is like, but I think people will end up enjoying it, especially if they like stuff like historical fiction shows like Vinland Saga and stuff like that. I think they'll end up liking it in that regard also, if they like shows like that.
Yeah, again, this is another one where I think fans of the manga will like it, but I really don't think this will be as iconic as Assassination Classroom. I think it'll be in some ways better than the manga, but I don't think it's going to be hugely popular.
It could be like something like a cult classic, but like I said, it all really depends on whether or not like most anime fans that did enjoy Assassination Classroom will give it a shot, because it's from the exact same creator. So that's honestly the main thing that I'm kind of like banking on, if whether or not it'll do super well or if it'll just stay niche. But I do think it'll at least get some people talking upon release, if anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Since we talked about 100 Years Quest, I want to briefly talk about the fact that Blue Exorcist is getting a new anime. Now, whether this is a seasonal continuation from the original, or if it's just going to be like a reboot, like how we got with like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, or how Shaman King, but Shaman King's, from what I hear, that reboot was kind of like butchered and rushed. So I'm kind of hoping it's more of a seasonal thing. But the manga for Blue Exorcist is just really good. It's still ongoing, which a lot of people don't know about. And after like the mess of like marketing and release that was the second season of Blue Exorcist, which took place after that midway point of season 1, and people it was just a confusing mess when I first got into Blue Exorcist until I got into the manga. But I don't think that Blue Exorcist will get like super big, unfortunately, because it's like at this point it'll probably be like for manga fans only. But if it is a reboot, I do see the small chance, if it's animated like as well as it was before, and if not better, could actually break the mainstream, because it is a really well-made series, and I do think if it's given the opportunity, people will end up enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I never got into Blue Exorcist, but if they handle it right, I'm sure, because a lot of people love the manga, but yeah, they have to be careful if they reboot it for obvious reasons.
Yeah. But, yeah, Bull Extras, just wanted to mention briefly. Let's talk about, like, probably an insane series. We brought up Chainsaw Man earlier. Dandadan, I think, once it gets an anime adaptation, it'll definitely get people talking. Because the manga, in and of itself, is just crazy. And it's from one of Tatsuki Fujimoto's assistants as well. Same like with Hell's Paradise, which is doing relatively well right now with its anime, which is also being done by MAPPA. And if Dandadan gets confirmed to be done by MAPPA, that would literally be like Fujimoto and both his like assistants who have like really good manga would be part of the same studio. So I do think that's going to end up doing very well with its like weird brand of humor and just random nature. I do think people are going to like it, especially with like the meme potential that Chainsaw Man has also. So I think that'll probably take part with it also. It's also the fact that the mangaka is really just doing whatever the hell he wants. I heard a story apparently that his editor was like, okay, I like your art, I'll look over it, but basically just draw whatever the fuck you want. Which kind of explains the random and wackiness of how the series goes.
Yeah, I think this is the only other one that I could see as being like the next big thing. In fact, I think this could honestly be a contender like with Chainsaw Man and JJK. Is if it gets the right studio. Obviously, as far as I know, we haven't had an anime announcement yet, so we would have to wait for that, obviously. But yeah, no, I think the manga isn't as popular as those two, but I think given the right adaptation, I think the anime would be right up there with Chainsaw Man and JJK.
It could end up probably have like the Demon Slayer effect. If it's very well animated, people will get really hyped about it, then they'll just end up buying and reading the manga afterwards. It's not impossible. It's happened.
Oh yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah. But lastly, just want to talk about this really quick. Kaiju number 8 is confirmed to be getting its anime next year, and it kind of got people upset when we got like the character visuals, which those could end up getting like adjusted to look better with the actual anime adaptation. So I'm hyped for that if it's adapted very well. I don't remember which studio has Kaiju number 8, but I do think it'll do fairly well, because if animated right, this crazy and really awesome series could end up doing fairly well in the mainstream.
Yeah, I think Kaiju number 8 will do really well in the beginning, but after that, I think it's going to fall off, because it's just kind of more of the same. At least I am still kind of behind on Kaiju number 8. I have to catch back up. But I mean,
right now, like plot stuff is happening right now, and some character development as well. So right now is where it's like really starting to like build up again. But I see what you mean. It does kind of like peter out for a little bit. So I do see that people will end up dropping off from it, at least after a little while. But I do see it like getting relatively well received at the very least.
I think it'll be well received, but like, I mean, at least in my circle, I don't really see anyone still talking about Kaiju number 8, which is hilarious, because when it was brand new, everyone was saying it was going to be the next Attack on Titan. And if you're making that comparison, nobody ever stopped talking about Attack on Titan when that manga was releasing. And Kaiju number 8, I like almost never see anyone talking about it anymore.
Yeah, that's very true. Though then again, the anime could change things. It like I said, it could end up altering things, but it does have like a slow point, so I can see what you mean. But the last thing I want to mention for this video, because we're over like a half an hour at this point, the last thing I want to mention is Choujin X. Now that's a series that got very hype when it was like announced. Not too many people like talk about every single chapter as it's released, since it's like him doing whatever the hell he wants, like releasing the chapters whenever he's ready, which is a healthy model for the mangaka. But I mean, it's also the fact that we don't know when the next chapter is going to drop, but then when it does drop, we get excited over it. And I think if you were a fan of Tokyo Ghoul, I do think you're going to like Choujin X. It all depends on whether or not it actually gets a proper adaptation, unlike Tokyo Ghoul. But with the release schedule it has right now, I don't see it getting an adaptation for at least another 2 years. Even though it does have a good amount of chapters for like a short 13 episode season, perhaps, maybe a full 24 episode season. That would still mean like a long wait for new seasons, considering that the material that's going to be based off of is going to be like unknown amount of time to be released. Kind of like a Game of Thrones situation. The only difference is we could actually wait years for when this series eventually finishes without an actual adaptation. But you never know. I'm just spitballing here. Regardless, I do feel like if it gets a proper adaptation, it will be good, considering it's from the man who wrote Tokyo Ghoul. So, proper adaptation, it'll get popular.
No, I definitely agree. I think you nailed it.
But yeah, those are basically like all the big series that we think will probably end up doing well, or at least get some sort of following within the next few years once they do get their adaptations. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what series you guys look forward to the most. And if you haven't already, go check out OG's channel. He's very close to reaching 10k subs. And I do think he deserves every single subscriber at this point, because his content's honestly, admittedly, a lot better than mine.
Oh, thanks, man.
Do you have any closing words?
No, I was just going to say, that's not necessarily true, but thank you. I appreciate the kind words. Obviously, I imagine you guys are all subscribed to Greek Weeb, but if you aren't, make sure you are, because he's got great content and he covers series that not necessarily everyone else does.
But yeah, that's basically it. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps. Shows you guys like what I do here. And again, if you have any suggestions on what I could do in the future, let me know down in the comments. And with all said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.